Hello, and welcome back to the Glowing Mama Method podcast, where we discuss healthy and sustainable weight loss for women over 40. And today we have a very special guest, Dr. Carrie Jones. Welcome.
Oh my gosh, hi. I'm excited.
So for anyone who doesn't know you, can you just give us a brief background about who you are, what you do, and what brought you here?
I have been a women's health and hormone doctor pretty much my entire career. So I've been a doctor for 20 years and started out in private practice focusing all on women's health. I mean, I saw a lot, but women's health and hormones just kept coming back over and over because I realized myself, my own journey, a lot of women just didn't understand their body or their hormones. I had a lot of women who had babies, right? Who were trying to have babies and they just didn't. Nobody ever explained to them other than when the P goes in the V, like what happens beyond that, their menstrual cycle and all these things. So I just dove really headfirst into hormones. And now that as I've gotten older, my people have gotten older as well. And now I tend to see a lot of women over 40, like late 30s, over 40 into their 50s, who were like, okay, now what? Either still trying to become pregnant or having had just become pregnant, just postpartum. Or they're like, okay, I'm fully perimenopausal. What the heck do I do now? And again, we're back to poor women aren't taught about this. And I don't mean poor as in I feel sorry for them. I'm mad at the education system. I'm mad at the medical system for not getting it out there. I am so grateful that women are like, teach me everything, which is why I love talking with you and now coming on your podcast because get this information out there.
Absolutely. It's so important. And I feel like, I mean, if men were the ones who dealt with this stuff, it would be front row and center. But women,
yes,
we often get like, oh, it's all in your head. It's just,
yes.
How many of us have heard that, right? Going through.
Right. Or that's what happens when you're a mom, right? Like, well, that's what happens. You know, you have 3 kids under the age of 10. Of course you're exhausted. Of course you can't sleep. Of course you've gained weight. It's like, I'm going to punch you in the face, except I don't look good in orange. So, okay.
Yeah, so where to? To Dr. Carrie Jones to the rescue. So one of the things that I love most about how you break everything down is you make it really digestible for people to understand, because I feel like hormones is just this word that just gets thrown around like, my hormones are off balance, but nobody actually knows what that means when they say that. Oh, my hormones haven't been the same since having babies, or my hormones are off now that I'm in my 40s. Like, I think what people are referring to are the symptoms that they're feeling.
Yes.
But how do we understand like the basic hormones? And I love how you personify them. So you give like estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, like they all have this character. So can you give us a little bit of that so that we can understand kind of what we're dealing with?
We have over 50 hormones in our body. Usually what women mean when they say, it's my hormones, I feel like it's my hormones, they don't know it, but they're usually thinking about their estrogens, their progesterone, their testosterone. Maybe they're thinking about cortisol, which is a stress hormone, or thyroid. Now, hormones are little text messages. We call them chemical messengers, but they're a text message. So they themselves go to a certain part of the body and do the thing. And sometimes, you get a text message that's like the kind of friend who sends long paragraphs. So it's this long involved thing the hormone does. And other times you have friends that send, a sentence, a sentence, a sentence, a sentence. And so your poor phone is getting blown up like ding, 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 ding. And you're like, just put it in a paragraph. But the same thing can happen in hormones. And other times you send a text out and nobody responds. And you're like, hello, is anybody out there? So it feels the same in hormone world. It's like Goldilocks. It's either too much, just right, or not enough. And as a result, we feel the symptoms. Hormones are also incredibly dramatic. They're the canary in the coal mine. They are the first to react and the last to right themselves. They react to everything, how we're eating, how we're feeling, what season we're in, how our stress is, what's going on out in the environment, what's going on in our own environment. I mean, they really just react to everything around us. They're really great feedback to pay attention to. Now, estrogen, we think of estrogen like she's the queen. She rules, she reigns, she does the stuff. She's the reason we have a lot of the symptoms we have, but also most of the good we have is because of estrogen, in particular estradiol, which is called E2. So estrogen's like your glower, your grower. She's She's in charge of basically every system of the body. She has her finger touching on. But again, Goldilocks, like too much of her, we definitely feel it. Not enough, we definitely feel it. It needs to be just right, depending where we are in our cycle. Then we have progesterone. Progesterone's like our calming, soothing, relaxing, everything's going to be okay hormone. She's the hormone like pro-gestation. So she's the one that's like nesting in the uterus, like gets everything nice and fluffy and throw pillows and rugs and all the stuff for implantation if you're trying to get pregnant, to have a nice period, to sleep, to feel less anxious. And then we have testosterone. Now, women, believe it or not, we have a lot of testosterone, not as much as men, but we do have a lot of testosterone, even relative to estrogen. But testosterone also, like we think of with libido, we think of with muscle, we think of with mood and motivation. So testosterone's kind of that like motivated, gym girl. That's what I think about with her is like, let's go, let's build, let's like the masculine, but in a good sense. Like I'm going to motivate you. I'm going to get you going. I'm going to build you some muscle and, help that libido along the way. Although a lot goes into libido, not just testosterone. Right. So when women say, I feel like my hormones are off, it's true. If we go back to Goldilocks and the Three Bears, some may be too hot, some may be too cold, and some are just right. And because of that, they generally feel kind of weird and off.
Right. And then we hit a point in our life where the hormones are naturally starting to tank.
That's a really good place to start. So you said naturally as opposed to canary in the coal mine. So some women are in their 30s saying, I'm perimenopausal. I feel hormonal, therefore I must be perimenopausal. And I'm like, remember, your hormones are reacting to everything. It's entirely possible you're having hormone dysfunction because of whatever, stress or travel or like nutrition, lack of exercise, maybe you have an infection. Like there can be a lot of reasons for hormone dysfunction. Naturally, though, as we do get older, the signal between our brain down to our ovaries and the amount of follicles we have left in our ovaries isn't that great. And as a result, we go from regular cycles, regular communication, regular output of hormone to it feels kind of like a wild roller coaster all over the place sometimes. And so women, and that whole transition is known as perimenopause, when that signal from the brain down isn't totally received like it used to be down in the ovaries, down in the follicles.
So like at first glance, you feel like, is this like a flaw in human nature? Like we're all of a sudden, all of the things that keep us stable and motivated and healthy and calm and sleeping well are all of a sudden tanking. Like, are we doomed to have symptoms? Or is there like, on one hand, what can we do health-wise, lifestyle-wise to get us to a point where we're not actually so affected by symptoms when we get there? And then on the other hand, what can we do if we are finding ourselves in that place?
Not doomed. However, I do feel the current, like the last 50 to 100 years has probably not worked well in our favor. Like our stress is at the highest. Mm-hmm. We don't have the support like we used to. Environmental toxicants are at all-time highest. Infections are high. Mm-hmm. Like we're taking on a lot. And it's what our body probably was designed for and where we're at in the 21st century aren't exactly matching up. Like that puzzle piece is not working. So people will say, and I joke all the time, I'm like, if I'm the goddess of the female body, I'm going to make some changes, not because there's anything wrong with us, but because I need to get us in the 21st century with the amount we have to deal with now compared to before. But I will say, the concept of women going through this transition has been going on for thousands of years. I mean, Aristotle talked about it, not fully understanding it, but we could see it in different groups where women were clearly making a change, and it was confusing to men who were mostly in charge, or mostly the doctors, mostly in medical, mostly the philosophers, etc. And they were like, there's not happening in their body. So they're like, well, what the heck is wrong with the women, right? I mean, think of hysteria and hysterical and hysterectomy. I mean, it's because of all this change that's happening for women. What I'm arguing is that a lot of good comes out of this. A lot of like who you're becoming, this next phase. if you, it's like reversing out of puberty. If you went into puberty as a 10, 12, 13, 14-year-old knowing what to expect very clearly, it would have made puberty probably a whole lot easier. And so now with perimenopause, I'm like, oh, we're going to be super educated. Like the Gen X and the millennials, we are going to be so educated because we're in it right now that my goal is for it to be easier versus a whole 2 generations of women going, oh my gosh, this sucked for my mom. This sucked for my grandma. Like, I can already see it. I'm having these symptoms. What do I do? Do I have to suffer? And I think because women were silenced and put down so often in the medical community for so long, that even somebody who says, well, my mom didn't report symptoms, maybe she didn't have symptoms, or maybe she was told it was normal, or we don't talk about that. It's to be expected. And so she didn't know it was called perimenopause. She didn't know what menopause was. And I think that whole narrative is changing. Where now women, Gen X and millennials, we're mouthy. And so now we're like, I don't like these symptoms. What are these symptoms and what can I do about it? And that's the pivot point we're at in this pendulum swing that I find really exciting, because I'm like, oh, there's so much we can do. But a lot of women get symptoms, so that part does suck. We have to. So we're right at the pivot point. We haven't gotten to the other side where everyone's educated and knows what to do.
Yeah, I think of like the big hormonal rites of passage, like puberty, yes, pregnancy, and menopause, as these almost checkpoints in a woman's life, where there's like a bouncer at the front door that's like, oh, stress response, you can't bring that in with you. Sorry, you can't bring that over to the next level. Like poor sleep, that's also not welcome here, right? Like when I think of when I went through puberty, all of a sudden I started gaining weight, I started breaking out, but like none of my friends were. So I'm like, what's wrong with me? And why am I experiencing puberty differently than all of my friends who are still skinny and have clear skin?
Right.
I think it was that I was raised on bread and pasta and Nutella and all of those things. They caught up with me where I hit 13 and my period came and my body was like, nope, we don't put up with that anymore. Right. And then you have to learn, recalibrate, adjust what needs to be adjusted so that you can move into that next kind of level up in a way that doesn't hurt so much.
And I have a lot of women, even a lot of non-medical women, who say that. They're like, I'm becoming a person I really like, or I wish I had in my 20s and 30s. I'm becoming a personality I wish had developed earlier. And I'm like, I don't know that it could have for some women. Sometimes it takes this hormonal shift for someone to go, enough, I'm done. Strong boundaries, absolutely not. Prioritizing me and self-care. Like this is the rest of my life, and I'm gonna make it golden, whatever it is. But you didn't have that, maybe that confidence, that experience, that whatever that a lot of women step into in their 40s and 50s. We joke, when you're younger as a woman, oftentimes we see the older generations just not caring, like my mom used to go outside, get the mail in her bathrobe, like, or, my friends' moms who would do things and we were like, that's so awkward. That's so embarrassing. And now I'm like, oh yeah, I don't care. I'm 100% that person now. Like, oh, that was just like, it's a rite of passage. Like, yeah, I don't care. What are you going to do?
Yeah, no. Have you ever seen that meme that's like, I had to make you uncomfortable, otherwise you never would have moved? And it's either
yes,
God, the universe, whatever language you want to call it. Like, it's so true. Sometimes we need to be rattled a little bit in order to be like, oh, I can't drink alcohol in excess anymore. Okay.
Yes.
Like, otherwise, if I could eat McDonald's and drink alcohol and feel like $1 million, I'd probably do it.
Yeah, we all would. Oh, absolutely. I mean, I love a good glass of wine. I don't like hard alcohol, not a beer drinker. A good glass of wine, absolutely. Does a good glass of wine like me? No, not at all. I rarely drink anymore. It's not worth it. I don't feel good. And when I was in practice, I would have these, in my younger years, 20s and 30s, I would have these women hit their 40s and they would go, you just wait. You just wait. You're going to hit your 40s and you can't drink alcohol. I'm like, no, that's not true. No, they were right. They were right. And it's a biologic thing. Like our enzymes in our liver truly do change or decline or shift. And we just don't process alcohol like we used to, which can be a hard thing for a lot of women to understand or to recognize or to like realize like that's what's going on. That nightly glass of whatever, the binging on the weekends isn't helping, and it's going to make your symptoms worse. And I'm not saying it's fair or fun, but that's where we're at.
Yeah. So would you say that when you're starting to go or starting to notice some changes, maybe in your body, symptoms, like, is lifestyle the place to start, or is it immediately, let me think about getting some progesterone cream? Like, where do we start, and how do we toe the line of like natural versus HRT?
Usually the foundations, the lifestyle is the first place that I start. So research divides perimenopause into 2 stages. I would have given us a whole lot more options, but whatever. We have 2 stages. So early perimenopause is when the cycle shifts by 7 days. Now I'm aware not everybody has a cycle. Some women have an IUD. Some women have had a hysterectomy. Some women have had an ablation. So they're like, well, I don't bleed anymore. We can still sort of categorize your symptoms, at least like early. Are you starting to get symptoms, or have you been having symptoms for a while? So early is shifting by about 7 days. Late perimenopause is once you've skipped 2 months. Once you start skipping periods, you're further along the whole progression. So in an early perimenopause woman who says, I'm noticing I'm not sleeping, I'm noticing I'm either anxious or rageful, I'm noticing my period's heavy, like I'm noticing my brain maybe doesn't remember like it used to, and these things come and go. I'm like, all right, you totally have options. We can tighten the foundations in the lifestyle. Just as you said, like the things that used to work are probably not going to work anymore. So how are you sleeping? What are you eating? How is your self-care and your stress response? Are you up late at night doom scrolling on your phone, which is exposing you to bright white light, messing with your melatonin? How are your relationships? How, are you doing things that make you happy and joyful? Are you exercising? We go through the checklist, which I know a lot of women roll their eyes and they're like, I never used to have to worry about that before, or that seems boring. Can't you just give me a pill? And I'm like, I know, but as a human, these truly are the things we have to go down the checklist. I do love hormones. So progesterone is usually the hormone that's the first to decline. Progesterone is only made after ovulation. And what can happen is that women, as they get older, is that they don't have the cells that have the egg inside of them. It doesn't get the signal, or it's not in the best health, and so they don't release the egg, and therefore they don't make progesterone. Or they do release the egg, but again, that signal isn't the same strength of the signal of a 20-year-old, and so their progesterone production is like meh at best. It's just not that great. And so in that case, we can try things to try to get the signal better, to try to get the health of the cell better. And some women are like, no, I've actually been suffering a while. I think I just want to go on progesterone. And I'm like, great. Because there's no herb out there, or nutrient for that matter, that's a 1-to-1. Like I can't give you an herb and it's the exact same replacement for progesterone. Even there's a cream, wild yam cream, that a lot of people mistakenly think wild yam is the same as progesterone, because in a lab, going through this technical process, you can turn wild yam into progesterone. That same process can't happen in the body. I mean, it involves like heating it up to over 200 degrees and then running it through this whole multi-step process. Now, unfortunately, what did happen is that some early wild yam companies were doctoring their creams with progesterone. So women were feeling better. And then it came to find out it was a mixture of wild yam with progesterone. I'm like, well, there you go. You have your answer. But it's not, but I just want to clarify that, because some people go, well, I don't like progesterone, but I'll do wild yam because that's where progesterone comes from. The body can't turn it into it. However, if somebody's like, no, I've been having these symptoms, I'm not sleeping, I am anxious, I am rageful, my periods are heavy, I'm doing all the right things, for sure, let's start talking about lab work and hormones.
Now, would you is wild yam cream beneficial at all for you're not even feeling any symptoms yet, is it even helpful to get some and rub it on your arms or your breasts or?
So some women will say that when they do wild yam cream, because it's supposed to improve those things, that they do feel better. If that's actually the wild yam as an herb, as opposed to placebo effect, remains to be seen. Now, wild yam is often in like herbal hormonal blends in capsules. So you'll see things like evening primrose oil and wild yam and black cohosh and chase tree, which is Vitex, mixed together in some sort of combination. But on its own as a cream, I don't find it, that's not my most effective tool in my toolbox.
And what about those combination ones? Like, I think what I'm getting at is like, is there a natural health supplement that we can take that's going to precede progesterone, or once all of those lifestyle factors are met and you're still struggling, just go straight to the progesterone?
It depends. The herbal part depends on why the progesterone is low. So remember I said hormones are like, they're very dramatic. They're the canary in the coal mine. So let's say, as an example, your progesterone is low, not because of your age, not because of perimenopause, but because there's another hormone called prolactin, and your prolactin's a little bit high. You don't have a prolactinoma, which is a tumor in the brain, a non-cancerous tumor, and that makes prolactin. But you can be higher for other reasons, like extreme stress, low vitamin B6, hypothyroidism. There's a few other reasons. Well, prolactin, being the prolactation hormone, can suppress progesterone because the brain is like, well, what are we doing? Are we prolactating? Are we not? Like, I'm just going to stop ovulation because I don't know what we're doing. And so in that case, things that lower prolactin are, can we get what's going on with your thyroid? So now we're looking at treatments and supports for your thyroid. Well, is it your stress? Okay, let's do treatments and supports for your stress. Is it low B6? Well, that's an easy fix. Let's get B6 foods or add in B6. And then I mentioned that herb chase tree, which is also known as Vitex. And its main mechanism of action, we think, is that it helps to lower prolactin. It does so by increasing a hormone called dopamine. So some women get a lot of benefit out of chase tree. They get their progesterone back, not because it directly makes progesterone, but it addresses the root cause. Just like some women get their thyroid figured out and they're like, oh my gosh, my PMS went away. My progesterone went back. I got pregnant. I'm like, I know the root cause was thyroid. Now we still have to figure out what caused your thyroid to be crazy. But you know what I'm saying? Like these herbs and supplements and nutrients work well because they can help support the whole, like the back end of it.
Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I'm thinking back to like, I was in my 20s and taking Vitex. It was probably the most terrible tasting.
It is one of the worst. I always warn people, it is one of the, if you take it straight in a tincture, which is the liquid form, if you've ever had echinacea will numb your tongue. Where Vitex just tastes absolutely terrible. I joke all the time that in the herbal world, I think Mother Nature made Vitex taste so badly that the brain and the ovaries were like, okay, all right, we'll just work. Like, we'll just do it. We're listening. We'll do the thing. Stop taking this.
Absolutely. But it worked for me. Like, and now that you're talking, I'm like, it makes a lot of sense because I was under a lot of stress at that time. And I didn't get my period for 3 months. And I was told when I had a hormonal blood panel done that my progesterone was like menopause low.
Yes. Yeah. Which can happen. Again, remember high stress, with whether we want to admit this or not, I know it can be hard, but like the female body is designed around reproduction. Doesn't mean you have to, but it is. And so the body is cueing for, are you in a good place? Is everything lined up that if you wanted to get pregnant, you could get pregnant? Like on average, I'm not saying this is a perfect design, but like on average, that's what the body is scanning for.
Right.
So when you were in a high stress situation, high stress chronically, the body will prioritize survival over reproduction. So what happens is women will either lose ovulation, they'll lose their period, they'll have bad heavy periods, they'll get PMS, all these things happen because the brain's like, I can't focus on that right now. At the same time, is focusing on survival.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. And so, okay, back to HRT. When we're starting, we would start with progesterone first, would you say?
It's the first hormone to go down. So it's usually the first hormone that women get introduced to or feel comfortable with, or that's usually where they start if they start early enough. Yes.
And then how would you choose how to administer that? Because I know there's many different ways. There's pills and creams and
so many ways. Yes. So if it's just progesterone, that's the only thing you're doing, you have a lot of options on how to get in. And I'd say the most popular way are the pills. Mm-hmm. So the prescription pill is called is Prometrium, and it comes in 2 doses, 100 and 200 milligrams. The upside is that you can get it at your pharmacy, and oftentimes insurance covers it. The downside is it does have peanut oil, some food coloring, and binders in it that women are sensitive and reactive to. So, and it only comes in 2 doses. So some women need 50 milligrams or they want 150 milligrams. So in that case, it's not a great option, but we can get it compounded at a compounding pharmacy. And a compounding pharmacy is where a pharmacist at a pharmacy uses the FDA approved hormone, progesterone, but makes it specific to you. So the end result isn't FDA approved, but like leading up to that, what goes in it isn't like a black market thing. It's like a real progesterone hormone. Yeah. Then from there, the second most common is probably vaginal progesterone. A lot of what your listeners are probably familiar if they had to use that for pregnancy. But the women who don't tolerate the oral, they get side effects, or they just don't want to, they're terrible at swallowing pills. The vaginal can be nice because they can insert it at night and still get some of the effects, not all the effects. There are other options like progesterone cream, which is applied to like the inner arm, the wrist, like the thinner skin is ideal. The problem with the progesterone cream is that it also is not necessarily that well regulated. There's no FDA approved form of progesterone cream, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but also progesterone itself as a hormone is kind of a pain. She's a very fat loving hormone. And therefore if you rub her into your arm or your breast or your thigh or your belly, she kind of stays there. And so what we found is that women will rub it in and they may feel better. They're like, oh, I feel calmer, or I do notice my symptoms are better, but other women don't. Other women are like, I need more. Like this isn't working. I'm like, it's possible it's just sitting in your fat. It's a very fat loving hormone, which is different than like estrogens, testosterone, also fat loving, not as fat loving as progesterone is. And so some women just buy progesterone cream, like their natural food store, and love it. And others are like, yeah, I tried that. It was junk. It didn't work. I'm like, it's not junk per se. But also you have to understand what we call pharmacokinetics of it. Okay. The other problem with anything topical is that if you do have kids or a partner or an animal that you're touching a lot, the transfer is a problem. So if you're rubbing in your progesterone cream or any cream for that matter, and then you go and like pick up your cat on your arm, you like hold your kid for a long time, we need to be very careful not to transfer the hormone. And that's any hormone, not just progesterone.
Now, the fat transfer thing, I've heard of some people utilizing like wild yam or progesterone to actually like as like a natural breast augmentation.
Yeah, so it can cause an estrogen too. So what can happen is women with too much progesterone, or sometimes women who haven't had progesterone in a while and they jump into hormones. So they've kind of been like the Sahara Desert for a while and they add in a whole lot of hormones at once. What can happen is that they'll get a lot of water retention. Okay. And so breast tissue is one of the tissues that can get a lot of water retention. And so the water, they can make them feel swollen for sure. But then they can get sort of an increase in breast size, even just down to the fat level, depending how like the dose they're on and how long that they're on it. So it's not every woman, don't get me wrong, but yes, the water retention is probably the thing I hear the most, because the water retention can also lead to acne. I have had people say, I started progesterone and I started breaking out. I'm like, oh, it's definitely possible. We call it rebound water retention. Progesterone in theory is a diuretic, like a very easy, mild diuretic. And so some women love it because they're like, oh, I started progesterone and like all this water weight went away. And others are like, well, screw you, because I put on 5 pounds of water weight. And it's a rebound where the hormones in the body are shifting because of all the progesterone. And so this is why it's important with any hormone. Like, don't just don't try to doctor yourself. People are ordering online. They're trying to go to the health food store. It can be really challenging because then these side effects might happen, or it's not working the way you want and you don't understand why. And then you're either like, well, let me keep trying to doctor myself, or you're like, this is junk, I'm not doing it, it didn't work, when it was just that route or not good for your particular situation or that dose. I know it's hard sometimes to find a hormone educated practitioner, but that is the goal.
Yeah. And then how would we know when to add an estrogen, and what does that look like?
So estrogen usually comes later in the perimenopausal journey. There are two camps, and I'm going to say this because I want everyone to know what you might come up against when you go see your healthcare practitioner. Let's say you're listening to this and you've been skipping periods and feeling it. You're like, now I'm having hot flashes and night sweats, and my muscles hurt. I'm having some joint pain. My vagina's dry. It's not progesterone anymore. Like I'm feeling more, I've been progressing through this and skipping some periods. That tells me your estrogen's low. Estradiol in particular. So there's two camps in the medical world. One camp says, well, you can't go on estrogen until you're fully postmenopausal. Once you've gone 12 months, consecutive months with no period, on the 13th month, congratulations, you're postmenopausal and you can have estrogen. The other camp says, screw that. If you're suffering and you want it and you're a candidate, you get estrogen. Why would I make you wait 12 or 13 months when you're like, estrogen is impactful for every system in your whole body. So once you start skipping and having symptoms, you get estrogen. I'm in that camp. Why would I make you wait? That seems ludicrous to me. I'm in the camp of, hey, Carrie, I don't feel good. Here are my symptoms. By the way, I skipped last month. What do you think? I'm like, are you interested in estrogen? Let's go through your risk factors. Here are your options. And this is what we can do. If you have a uterus and you go on estrogen, you have to go on progesterone. They're a package deal. We have to protect the uterus from a thickness called hyperplasia, or worst case scenario would be cancer, endometrial cancer. If you don't have a uterus, let's say you've had a hysterectomy, you still might want progesterone because progesterone receptors are through your whole body. So if you're not sleeping and you're having anxiety or you're feeling rageful, progesterone can still help that. It can be supportive. So you still have options for progesterone.
Can we compare HRT and the birth control pill?
Yes.
Because, birth control in my brain, birth control pill equals bad. HRT equals could be really good. So why? What's the difference?
Yes. So the birth control pill is an entirely different form of hormone, right? It's synthetic. It's ethinyl estradiol. Even though it has the word estradiol in there, ethinyl estradiol is synthetic. And then it has a progestin, which is a synthetic progesterone. So to clarify, our body makes progesterone and estradiol. Those are the chemical names of what we actually make out of our ovaries. So the birth control pill is ethinyl estradiol, which is synthetic, and progestin, which is also synthetic. So the birth control pill takes over hormone production for us. It shuts all our estrogen, progesterone production down. It often lowers testosterone as well for a lot of us. It stops ovulation, and it does what it says it's going to do. It's birth control. It's if you don't want to get pregnant, ta-da, it does the thing. Now, birth control is an option, although it is sort of, I'm noticing not as much being offered anymore for perimenopausal women, but it used to be kind of the go-to. Oh, you're perimenopausal, you're hormonal, here's the birth control pill. Now we have so much more education, hey, hormone therapy is probably the better option. However, I'm sure you have women listening to this going, yeah, but I don't want to get pregnant. Just because you're perimenopausal doesn't mean your pregnancy options have stopped. Your percent chances have gone down some, but it's not zero. So until you're postmenopausal, that's when it's zero. That when you don't ovulate anymore and you don't have a period, then it's zero. So I do have women go, but I don't want to get pregnant. Can I do the birth control pill? I'm like, it's totally an option. But for the average woman who says, I'm not worried about that, or maybe they've had their tubes tied, or he's had a vasectomy, then hormone therapy, estradiol, progesterone, testosterone, what we've been talking about, is the option I refer people to.
Okay.
which is, we call it bioidentical. Some people confuse bioidentical meaning it's only compounded, and that's not true. Bioidentical is a marketing term, and it just means it looks like the same hormone in your body. And there are bioidentical forms that you can get at a pharmacy, like a lot of the patches, estrogen patches, or the prometrium that I mentioned earlier, which is progesterone. We totally have options that look like your own in your body. Even the testosterone, unfortunately, there's no FDA approved form of testosterone for women, which is so dark ages. So what we're doing instead is an option is to use the men's testosterone at a much lower dose. Okay. But it is testosterone. Yeah. So we still can get around it by getting the actual hormone.
Do you think that'll change? Like,
oh my gosh, I hope so. It's so annoying. It's so annoying. I prefer to compound testosterone because women need such little amounts that in the men's, it's a packet. So it's like it's like the size of a Band-Aid type of packet. And then you have to just squish out either a fifth or the 10th of that dose, depending what the actual milligram amount of testosterone is in there. And so you're trying to calculate every day, like, I just need a squish. Like, I just need a little, like, scoosh. You know, and so I'm like, why don't we just compound what you actually need?
Yeah.
And go that route. Yeah. But you have options. There are options. So I'm hoping someday the FDA will approve testosterone, for women. Yeah.
That's kind of wild to me. Like, if we make testosterone naturally, why would they not approve it for women?
My guess, I think, is because of potential risk factors. Testosterone is considered a controlled substance. You, as a healthcare practitioner, you have to have a special prescribing license. It's called a DEA to prescribe testosterone. You don't have to have it for progesterone or estrogen or the birth control pill or anything like that. But my guess is because that's why they're afraid women might run wild with it. I don't know. We're like, I just need a skosh.
A little squish, please.
Just a little squish. Yeah, I'm not going to go crazy.
And that, like, testosterone, is that for, like, if you're noticing, like, libido or, like, motivation?
Libido, strength, mood. Yes. Now, here's where it gets super fascinating. So for some women, their testosterone doesn't decline like estrogen does. So some women go into perimenopause and they still make great, lovely, robust levels of testosterone, and they don't need it either at all or for a long while. Other women, their poor testosterone has crashed out a long time ago. I mean, they're like super low levels before anything else. So I do find testosterone depends on the women. Some women just assume, oh, and once I'm menopausal, I'll have no testosterone left. I'm like, that's not true. Women can totally make testosterone. It just depends on the woman. However, if you introduce testosterone too soon, what I've noticed is that if you've started with testosterone, so now you've made your testosterone levels like nice and healthy and robust, but you didn't support your estrogen. We're starting to see in the research, I'm starting to know in women that you get this disconnect, like a ratio imbalance between testosterone and estrogen, and it can worsen weight gain around the middle. It can worsen what we call the visceral adipose tissue. So the body sees all that testosterone, even though it's not elevated, it's just more elevated relative to estrogen and can contribute potentially to the weight gain issue. So I have had women go, I'm afraid of estrogen, but I'll do testosterone. And then they freak out and they'll go, I'm losing hair, I have acne, and I've gained weight. And I'm like, because I think that the order was wrong. Not every woman. I don't want to scare women on testosterone at all. I'm just starting to notice we have to pay attention to which is declining at what point, or are you supporting all hormones at once? Estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. And you can see how this gets to be like a really individual, nuanced conversation about, like, what do you need? What are your levels doing? Where are you at?
Yeah. And I guess that the best way to figure this out would be to test.
Testing. So the thing about there's no test for perimenopause per se. Some women will go, what can I do to test to see if I'm perimenopause? No, it's age and symptoms. If you're about that age and you're having some symptoms or your cycles are changing, congratulations. You would think we would get a crown or a watch or a vacation or something. We don't. We just get a like, welcome to perimenopause. Welcome to the club. And that's it. So there's no test to tell us, like, are you there? But testing hormones in general can be really helpful so I can see what's going on. It's easier to test the estrogen, the progesterone, if you're still cycling. If you see me as a patient and you're like, yep, I get my period every single month, but I can't sleep. I have anxiety. I'm having hot flashes sometimes. I hear like, and. I'm like, all right, we can test. And there are other hormones to test. I can test your thyroid hormone, right? I can test your insulin hormone. I can test your vitamin D. Like there's a lot of things I can test, iron, nutrients, B12 to see what else is going on. If you're seeing me later, let's say you've been holding out, and now you're like, Carrie, I don't know when my period comes. It comes, it goes away for a while. I get 2 in a month. I don't test estrogen and progesterone at that point. I do test the other things. Glucose, insulin, vitamin D, thyroid, etc. But I am mindful of where you are in the process to make the testing the most ideal for you. And then that testing can give me information because are there other things we need to address? Do you have other issues going on that could be making this worse?
So then would you say if someone is still cycling regularly, even if there's no symptoms, that it is a good kind of like prerequisite to get your hormones tested now?
Big fan. I am a big fan, and I know it doesn't fit in everyone's budget, but I am a big fan of getting regular testing, lab work, because what happens is a lot of women will go, I have perfect blood pressure. I have perfect glucose. I've never had high cholesterol in my whole life. And that becomes their identity. And I'm very proud of you for that. However, then what happens is when you cross into the perimenopause, postmenopause range, all those numbers can change for the worse if you're not keeping an eye on it. So I will have women go, I haven't had my cholesterol tested in years. Why would I? I've always had good cholesterol. And then they get it tested and it's really bad because it can be something that happens in menopause and the whole menopausal transition. So I tell women, I would love for you to start getting regular blood work in your 30s. So I know what your normal looks like. I would like to know what these markers are then so that we can go back and see at what point do you start changing? At what point do you start shifting? Because if you come to me, testosterone is a great example. You come to me and your testosterone is like, you get a blood draw and your testosterone is a 2. I don't know if you were always a 2, if you're now a 2, if you've been declining to 2. I don't know where you are in the scheme of testosterone. And so that's really helpful to know because some women have lived their whole life with like really good, high, like robust, healthy levels of testosterone and they feel it. They're like, I have a great sex drive. I put on muscle easily. I'm super motivated. And then as they get older, their testosterone declines and it's a big fall for them. And so when they go on testosterone, their healthcare practitioner might go, but I did your blood work. Your testosterone's okay. But yet I know their history and I knew they do better at the higher end of the range, not the lower end of the range, versus somebody else who's very sensitive to testosterone. They've lived their whole life at the lower end of the range. If I bump them up too fast, they might get the hair loss and the acne and the things they don't want. So if I have that history, I can go, okay, you felt good here. All right. Now I can compare.
Okay. And so is blood work the way to go, or would you recommend Dutch testing?
So blood work's a great first start because most of the things, thyroid and cholesterol and glucose and insulin and vitamins and a lot of the hormones, like we can do that in blood work. When we want to get more advanced, when I want to know more specific information, like you make estrogen, how does your body break it down? You make cortisol, where is it throughout the day? Then I would get more advanced with something like a Dutch test. Yes.
Okay. And then just to circle back to the birth control versus HRT, I think one of my biggest beefs with birth control is that it's just depleting a lot of nutrients.
Like a multivitamin's worth.
Yeah.
And my pharmacist friends who are on the more functional side, they're like, we don't know why a multivitamin isn't recommended with it. Like, why? We don't know why pharmacists aren't more vocal to say, hey, you're going to go on this birth control pill and it depletes so many nutrients. You should probably replete them with some sort of quality multivitamin, or be very aware in the foods that you eat. You need to get these back. Yeah. My other concern with the birth control pill is that we know in the studies, different levels and doses, of course, but that progestin, that synthetic progestin in the menopause studies is what's linked to the slight increased risk of breast cancer. It's not a big risk, but it is a slight risk. And so that's why hormone therapy got shut down for so many years, because a big study came out in 2002 that said hormones cause cancer, don't go on them. So women didn't, and they still think that to this day. But really what it was the progestin, medroxyprogesterone acetate is what the fancy word is, in it that has the slight increased risk. Now, it's a different progestin in the birth control pill, but still, I'm like, if we're so worried about hormones in women, why are we still handing out the birth control pill like it's candy? Just make it like logically make sense. I'm very glad we have the option for birth control reasons, but I am scratching my head at, women over 40 can't have hormones because that causes cancer. Here's the birth control pill. I'm like, hold on. What? That doesn't make sense to me.
Make it make sense.
Make it make sense. Yeah. So I have a few just sort of like, what? Okay. So not to mention, you're right, the nutrient part, nobody talks about with the birth control pill. Even like I said, my pharmacy friends are like, yeah, we recommend it to everybody, but it's not common that that's done. Some sort of multi or something.
So HRT doesn't have the same effect on nutrient depletions, or does it?
It does not. It does not. And let me clarify. The HRT that is, again, like the bioidentical. If you're taking progesterone, if you're taking estradiol, if you're taking testosterone, it doesn't have the effect on nutrient depletion. Okay. Not like the birth control pill.
Okay. I think
there are hormone therapies, of course, for menopausal women that have progestin or synthetic estrogen. Yes. They still don't get linked like the birth control pill does.
Yeah.
But I will say the other ones.
The book that opened my eyes to all of this was Estrogen Matters.
One of my favorites.
It's like
one of my favorites.
Mind-blowing. Are there any other resources or books that you would recommend if someone wants to wrap their head around all of this before they get there?
There are several. So if people are watching the video, I have a lot of pink books behind me. All of these books. So there's a great one, The Great Menopause Myth. That's a really good one. There's, of course, The New Menopause. There is Grown Woman Talk. There is You Are Not Broken. There are a lot of the books by Dr. Sarah Gottfried. She has 7 or 8 books. They're really great resources. Her author last name is Gottfried. Now on social media, you'll find her as Dr. Sarah Zoll, S-Z-A-L. You will find, what else? As I look at all specifically, the XX Brain and the Menopause Brain are amazing for all things brain related, because so many brain changes, of course, happen as women go into perimenopause.
That's a good one.
Dr. Laura Bryden, her book is great on metabolism in perimenopause. I have a lot. There's a lot. I could go on.
I think that's a good place to start. It is an overwhelming world. Even as I'm 38 and I'm just starting to pull the resources together and supporting clients through these changes as well. So I'm really trying to do my best to know everything that I can about this phase, but it's a big world and it's a blessing because having access to this information so that we don't feel like we're just going through some mystery thing or it's all in our head or, I think just getting empowered with information is the best way to go about this.
And everybody's perimenopause, everyone's hormone dysfunction is different. And everybody's perimenopause can be a little different. Historically, everyone thought, well, I don't have hot flashes and I don't have night sweats, so I must not be in perimenopause. Not realizing that it can affect all 12 systems of the body. So you might, for example, when you get there, have hot flashes and night sweats. Somebody else may notice gum issues, tongue issues, ear issues, skin issues. And you would think, well, I don't have that. And they're like, well, I don't have hot flashes. And yet both can be true through perimenopause. Some women can have terrible brain fog, and the symptoms can come and go. They may say to you, oh my gosh, my early symptoms were brain fog. Thank goodness that got better. But now I'm feeling, and then, a new symptom enters the chat. And I don't want women to think this is like guaranteed. This is why I said we're at that pivotal point of the education is coming by the tidal wave. And then after the millennial generation, like the Gen Z and the Gen A, like they're gonna enter perimenopause just like ready to go, full of knowledge, because their moms and sisters and aunts have passed it all down. Like, okay, here's what we learned in the 2000s. We got this. Mm-hmm. So, but I do understand when women go, it's all doom and gloom. Like you just said, I'm going to get all these symptoms and it impacts all 12 systems of the body. That's what our moms and grandmas thought. Now we're just another layer. Now we have all this education. Now we can act on it. It's just not common knowledge yet. It will be.
So then this is where I get a little bit overwhelmed when it comes to even when I watch your content sometimes, I'm like, well, is every symptom perimenopause then? I
love that you asked that. Did I just post that on Substack? Yeah, I did. I think yesterday I posted, is everything perimenopause? No, not everything is perimenopause. And you're a great example. You're 38. And what I'm seeing is women on social media in their 30s, even younger, 33, 35. And they're like, well, I'm perimenopausal. I'm like, probably not. Probably not. I'm not saying perimenopause can't happen for some women in their mid to late 30s, especially women who go through menopause, unfortunately, early. However, what I am saying is hormone dysfunction can happen at any age, and that's not being recognized because we don't have a great title beyond hormone dysfunction. It's getting overlaid with, well, you must be perimenopausal, when really it for sure could be nutrient issues, environmental issues, dietary issues, stress issues, lack of sleep, and infections, like all these things, and have nothing to do with perimenopause. Yeah. And I gave an example recently of, somebody who was living in a moldy house and her doctors just kept saying, well, you're perimenopausal. No wonder you have all these crazy symptoms. You're perimenopausal. No, turned out she was living in black mold. Wow. And she didn't see it. Nobody could, until she did testing and ripped stuff up in her house. And all of a sudden, no, does she have perimenopause symptoms on top of it? Probably. Yeah. But that black mold causes nasty symptoms, but everything was getting blamed on perimenopause. And that's not fair. And I would hate for a woman to miss big things. I'd hate for a woman to miss that she's anemic. I would hate for a woman to miss that she's low in certain nutrients like B12. I would hate for a woman to realize that when she's going, Mach 10 with chronic stress, putting everybody first above her, carrying everything on the weight of her shoulders, well, it's just perimenopause. No, your poor body is trying to send you signals that something needs to change. We need to help you.
Yeah. I think that my approach is generally symptoms are your body's way of communicating with you. Let's support the symptoms rather than, I think a lot of people get really obsessed with trying to find what the title is, what the label is, rather than just being like, okay, this is what I'm feeling. How can I support it? What can I look into? How can I, if you're not sleeping well, eating well, moving well, and managing your response to stress, then to me, at least, there's no point in putting a label on something until okay, let's get all of those things under control. And then let's see what happens after that. Now, I think there are the cases where it's the opposite, where it's let's take mental health, for example. If someone doesn't have the will to live, get on some meds so that you have 100%. The will to live, so that you can start to eat well and sleep well and do all of the things, right? But I think for the vast majority, and you alluded to this earlier, people are just give me the pill. I just we're just so conditioned in this society to just want the magic pill that's the quick fix that's going to stuff the symptoms right away, rather than being like, what is this symptom trying to tell me, and what can I provide for my body in this moment to help?
Yeah. Well, and change is hard. And unfortunately, in our society, not everyone has a great support system.
Yeah.
So if they do, someone's listening to this going, I would love to take time. I would love to do self-care. I would love to, but in my situation, it's not feasible right now. Like, that's not the season that I'm in. I understand why they're like, is there just a pill for this? Because I literally can't slow down. I literally can't stop. I have to work even if I'm sick or my kid's sick, and I'm like, that's so not fair. That sucks with the society we're in. So it becomes this, like, we need to change that. At the same time, we understand hormones in general. Like they're literally the canary in the coal mine. They are a vital sign.
Yeah. I mean, this is the harsh reality that I hate to use as a comparison, but if you were diagnosed with cancer, you'd be taking that year off work and you'd be in the hospital doing the surgeries and getting the chemo and doing the things that you need to do. You would put everything else to the side and be like, I got to fight for my life right now. Mm-hmm. So at what point do we create those stronger boundaries, even around work, that allow us to be like, wait a second, if I keep going this way, it's not going to have a good outcome, and I won't be able to have longevity in my health, in my career, in my, all of the things that I'm stressing to show up for right now, I won't be able to show up for one day. So take the time now to be like, what can I adjust in my life so that I can function without being like constantly high strung, stressed, sense of urgency, until the wheels fall off, because they will fall off.
Yeah. Then nothing's happening, right? It's like that saying, you can't pour from an empty cup, and you can't throw an empty cup at people. So like you, right. We've got to, I used to tell, I had a very dear patient of mine, former patient of mine, who I used to say, like, I need you to put yourself in the top 3 in the grand scheme of the family and the job and, the animals and all the things. Like, I need you at least in the top 3. I can understand you can't always be number 1. But I need you at least in the top 3 because you owe it to yourself. And I do find a lot of women, one of the big bonuses of going through perimenopause, same with becoming a mom, but even more so perimenopause, like, women are like, yeah, I just don't care. There's this amazing creator Melanie, and she is the whole hashtag we don't care club. Like, all the things that we used to care so much about, now we're like, we don't care. Like, I don't care. The answer is no, fine, no, thank you, and just these hard boundaries and becoming more authentic. And I think, just as you said earlier, to make these transitions, we have to walk through that door, to leave things behind. And a lot of those we have to leave behind. I'm okay with it. I do know it can be hard for some women who are not used to being authentic, who are not used to putting themselves in the top 3, who are not used to saying no or no, thank you. Can be a big transition for them, but it's also can be fun, and it's good out the other end.
It's empowering, right? To be like, whoa, I just chose myself over, like, when you take inventory of like, how much of my stress is actually self-inflicted because I don't have an ability to set and hold boundaries.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I have to go to this thing. I promised I would show up for this thing. And I also have like, I'm triple booked this weekend because I have this party and that event and this. It's like, well, what if you just didn't? I don't know.
Yeah. I saw this meme. I don't know who the creator is, so I apologize. I can't give her credit, but she was holding like all these bags and toys and stuff, and she said, my husband said to me, relax, somehow it always works out. And she goes, it's me. I'm somehow. I'm the reason it always works out. And I was like, oh, yep. That'll change when you hit your 40s and 50s. You'll be done with that.
I love that. Yeah. And that's, I'd say that person who's saying it's me, I'm somehow, is at least at that point of self-awareness.
Yes.
Right? When you're aware of how you're self-inflicting and how you're holding the burdens for everyone around you, like, that's the first step towards change. So she's on the right track that way.
And she posted it online. So, people are going to hold her accountable and, be all about it in her comment section.
Okay, one last question. If there is any resources or tools that you have to share that can help people move through this perimenopause journey, what do you have for us?
I have a lot. So you can find everything on my website, which is drcarriejones.com, DRCARRIE Jones.com. And actually, I have an entire free ebook section. But because we talked about labs today, that might be the best one for people, where it's here are the basics. What do they mean? Here's a more comprehensive. And then here's, the Rolls Royce if you wanted everything. And that's drcarriejones.com/lab test checklist. Of course, you can always find me on Instagram at dr.Carrie Jones as well. I'm all about education. Most 99% of my stuff is free because I just want this information out there.
Awesome. Well, I will make sure to add a link to the show notes, and I appreciate you being here. Thank you so much.
Thank you.